had a name, before I had language, before I had memory, I was already in motion. Carried by a love that refused to stand still, my life began in migration. Mi mamá carried me in her womb as she crossed the border. She walked with courage in her heart and faith in her hands. And inside of her, me. Her body became my first home. Her heart became my first heart rhythm. Her courage became my first inheritance. That was my beginning. Migration was never just another chapter in my story. It was the first line. You see, I come from indigenous roots from Michoacán, Mexico, Raíces Purépecha, where monarch butterflies travel thousands of miles each year, guided not by maps, but by memory, where butterflies are born knowing how to leave and how to return. And maybe that's how it begins for all of us. Before we know our names, before we know our dreams, we are already carried in someone else's courage, standing on sacrifices we never witnessed, shaped by stories that we never knew. We are all standing on stories, some whispered, some silenced, some carried across distance, across generations, across borders. Stories are not just memories. They tell us how we are alive. The last thing mi mamá gave me was not an object. It was a blessing wrapped in a story. Te mando la bendición, hija. In the mornings, she would send me a Tex-Mex, her sweet name for her text messages, and it said, La bendición, hija, with an image of La Virgen de Guadalupe. And it meant, I'm with you. I see you. Estoy contigo, hija, even when I'm not around. See, that's what stories do. They hold us until one day they lift us. Mi mamá called me hija de mi corazón, daughter of my heart, and she meant it with all her being. And her legacy echoes in the places where she loved me most, in la cocina, where ollitas de barro from Jacona, Zamora, and Ecuandureo, Michoacán, lined the shelves like elders, where football played in the background, or telenovelas, or noticias, or music that knew our sounds, mariachi, bolero, rock en español. Her hands were steady. The world was loud, but she was steady. Sometimes mi mamá would heat up tortillas in el comal, moving with a rhythm that felt ancestral, like her hands knew the heat the same way they knew love. And I watched her hands, so confident, so sure, and I wondered, how did she hold fire like that? Then I understood. That's what mothers do. They touch fire so we don't have to. In the mornings, there was chilaquiles. The smell of toasted corn and simmering salsa verde filled la cocina up, like mornings wrapped in steam and love. On Sundays, there was pozole, steam rising like prayer. When my parents passed away, my world cracked open. First, mi papá, Then 9 months later, mi mamá. Everything fell apart. And what surprised me the most wasn't the pain. It was the stories that came back to me. I used to think stories were about a thing about the past, but grief taught me something different. Grief is about survival, and stories help us carry what one day we thought can break us. My parents believed in service, not as a slogan, as a responsibility. They practiced community for immigrants by showing up, by helping them with immigration papers, by offering dignity, guidance, and hope. My father was a quiet man, a hard-working immigrant, strong shoulders, soft heart. He went back to school to get his GED, his high school diploma, so he can help translate immigration papers in a language that wasn't built for them. He walked as a person of faith over 16 miles to fulfill a promise to La Virgen de Guadalupe in Des Plaines, Illinois. He worked multiple jobs, from La Fábrica to the hotel, to making bread so we can eat, a family of 7. And he even found time to train and complete a Chicago marathon. That was my father, Francisco Villegas Blancas. Quiet leadership, radical compassion. The last text message my father sent me read, "Felicidades a ti también, mija. Proud of you siempre. Siempre." That's it. Simple, but it carries everything. You see, grief makes things sacred. So when they were gone, it wasn't just grief. I felt unanchored, as if I moved through life and I didn't know where I was going. I was showing up, I was smiling, and the world just kept moving. And then I remember their presence came back in stories. And that's when I realized that stories are about survival. They're here to help us move forward. This altar holds my parents, but it also holds their stories of the love they shared, of the faith that carried them through. And right here, a monarch butterfly, representing migration. Tiny wings, massive distance. No maps, just memory, just instinct, just movement. Representing indigenous knowing of how to endure and how to return home again. And in many ways, that instinct lives in my body to keep moving, to keep remembering, to keep becoming. Migration is not only about the stories we left behind, because our stories migrate too. Last month, my dear friend Lorena drove me past the first house my parents ever bought. I thought it was going to be a quick selfie, but then something called me to knock. So I did. And the man slightly opened the door, and I said, "Buenas tardes. Mi mamá Marta y papá Francisco Villegas used to live here. I am their daughter." And before I can go on to the next sentence, he opened the door wide and said, "I've been waiting for you. Come in." Me? Waiting for me? I stepped inside, and he walked me through the house like family. And he handed me an envelope, and he said, "Look, a letter came yesterday for your father. Look at the desk where your father used to sit. Look at the family table where your mom one time invited me to sit and have some cafecito and some cookies. Look at the Amazing Grace poster above the laundry room." And then I will never forget what he said next. Before selling the house, my mom told him, "If my children ever come back, please let them in." There I was, years later. And as I walked out of the house, filled with tears and joy and nostalgia, I saw it on the wall, a graduation cap with a monarch butterfly and a dedication from their daughter to her parents for thanking them for everything, even though they arrived with nothing. Just like my story, just like my parents. My mom had a word for these experiences. She called them diosidencias, God's coincidences, not random alignment. Proof that stories wait for the daughter who returns and realizes she is the prayer they once whispered. And all of a sudden, everything made sense, because the stories we carry become the wings we need. And I see this every day in my first generation students. I see you. I know you. Creo en ti. Walking into classrooms with entire worlds on their backs. Translations, bills, family expectations, fear, hope. But when someone tells them your story matters, your culture matters, you matter, something shifts, their breath changes, their shoulders drop, and they sit a little taller. And I tell them, "Mija, mijo, I honor your lucha. I honor your resilience. I honor your story. Tu historia importa. Your story is not small. Your story is medicine. Your story has power. Your story has wings." On Dia de los Muertos, we remember. We say names. We tell stories. We remember out loud. My parents didn't disappear. They became story. They became memory. They became wings. And that's why it's important to tell our stories. Because healing happens in connection. When we tell our stories, someone else whispers, "Yo también," me too. So I ask you, what story are you carrying? Not the polished one, the real one. The one that visits you when it's quiet. That story. It is not a burden. It is a gift. Es un puente. And it might be the thing that helps someone else survive. Mamá, papá, muchas gracias por su sacrificio. Y gracias por las historias que aún me dan vida y alas para seguir adelante. Para mi hija, Katrina Guadalupe Miranda Villegas, may you know where you come from. From those who love bravely, who crossed borders, and who turned sacrifices into wings. Because you, mija, were born with wings. To my first generation students, may you move through the world grounded in comunidad and guided by those who came before you. May you rise with courage and purpose as the living breath of your ancestors' sacred dreams. A mis hermanas y hermanos, may we carry our parents' courage as the living breath of their ultimate sacrifice. And remember, we don't carry our stories alone. We carry each other. And when the moment comes, may the stories that you carry give you wings, porque nuestras historias nos dan alas.